Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Last time I quit my job cold turkey, I learned the lesson. It was a good decision to quit, but a bad decision to quit without planning ahead. Everything was fine for the first few months, which I call post-quitting honeymoon phase, but after that, reality kicked in and I started to panic. I didn't have a job lined up and the market was not great at the time. My expenses continued to flow out even though the real situation might not have been too bad, everything considered. I couldn't shake off the stress. So in this video, I want to share with you the lessons that I learned and the tips that I wish I knew before quitting my job cold turkey. Here are my 6 tips on how to quit your job with style. Number 1. Plan your finances. Make sure you have a very clear picture of your monthly expenses so you can adjust your spending pattern, manage expectations, and plan early as to how you can have your basic expenses covered during the downtime, which is the time you expect you might need before you land on your next job or have some income. A very important lesson I learned was make sure you give this time frame a good buffer as accidents do happen, so you may end up not having that stable income for a longer time frame than you anticipated. I'd recommend to have a minimum of 4 months as buffer and 6 to 9 months to be very safe. Make sure you keep this in mind when you're planning your finances so you can still keep yourself afloat in case things don't turn out exactly how you wanted them to be. I would say planning out your finances early is the most important process that you need to go through, not only because your finances directly affect the quality of life during your downtime, but at the same time, having a financial plan in place also forces you to visualize how it's like in the near future without a cushy 9-to-5 job. This visualization actually works very well in equipping you with that necessary mindset change so you are fully prepared, which means this would minimize the possibility of you completely freaking out midway and regretting your decision to quit. Number 2. Set a target time frame. This is very important because if you quit cold turkey, you probably haven't thought about this, but this ties directly with your financial planning. For example, if you plan to take a 6-month or 1-year break before you want to land on another 9-to-5 job or start your own business, then you need to work that into your schedule, as you might not always be lucky and be able to land on a job within a few weeks or successfully start your business within the time frame that you have in your mind. You might even want to start looking for another job early and work out with the future employer whether your first day of work can start a few months down the road rather than the next month. Or if your plan was to start a side hustle or your own business, well then you'll definitely want to plan early and have an action plan on what steps you need to take to launch your own business. It doesn't need to be very detailed, especially if this is your first time starting your own business, but you do want to plan early so you have a general idea and clearer direction, including how much time you'd want to give yourself to try it out. Most of us are jittery when we're about to quit our jobs because we're scared of the unknown, and the best way to conquer your fears is to face them head on and walk yourself through different scenarios. This way, your mind will be at greater ease, even though if things don't work out exactly into your time frame, at least you won't panic because you'll have a plan on what you need to do. I honestly think a huge part of quitting your job is to plan everything as early as possible to give yourself the maximum amount of comfort. Knowing that you have most things covered should give you some inner peace. Number 3. Maximize your employee benefits. I totally regret not looking into this when I quit before. Make sure you spend a good amount of time going through your benefits as an employee so you can maximize the value of what you're entitled to while you're still there. This is especially true if your employer is a multinational, as the benefits tend to be more substantial and comprehensive than smaller firms. I'm not asking you to be a cheapskate because employee benefits are part of your remuneration package, which means you're fully entitled to the perks. I'm suggesting that you know your rights and entitlements, and it is up to you to decide whether you want them or not. For example, make use of that annual health check or pay a visit to the medical specialist if needed, especially when the costs are still fully or partially covered by your employer's insurance. Join that gym with the annual membership if your employer offers a good discount, so you're actively creating more of a buffer for yourself during your upcoming downtime. You'll be surprised how much value you could get out of a bit of advanced planning, especially if you have been so busy to the point where you overlooked all these employee benefits, like me. Give your boss advance notice. This tip only works if you have a great relationship with your boss. Even though he or she is likely not going to be thrilled about you quitting, most people would surely appreciate the heads up, not only because it strengthens trust and it shows respect, but it also gives them a bit more time to digest the news so they can plan ahead, as well as finding your replacement and planning out your transition. Depending on your relationship with your boss, I suggest giving an advance notice of at least a week prior, if not more. For me, I've actually engaged in conversations with my boss 1 month prior, and then at the other time it was even a year prior I left the company. That actually allowed me to leave the company in the best of terms and with full blessings. Personally, I believe this is the best outcome. And another tip is make sure you rehearse in advance what your response will be if your boss persuades you to stay or gives you a counter offer or makes different promises. The last thing you want is to have your boss believe that you're just doing the quitting dance to get a higher salary or a better package. Number 5. Advance your work transition plans. If you are not in an urgency to quit your job, try to plan ahead at least a couple of months prior and gradually phase out from the company spotlight by phasing in other colleagues whom you think you can pass on your responsibilities to. For example, maybe you're the project driver at the moment, but once you made the decision to quit your job, start to pull a couple of other capable colleagues closer and empower them to take up more of your responsibilities while giving them a lot of guidance. You can also start to include these colleagues on emails if you haven't already, so they can have more ownership of the project and increase their visibility to other team members. This way, it would be less of a shock when you leave your company and less disruptive to the working team, as you've already started to transition out a few months prior. You'd also be under less pressure in the final month or few months or however long your notice period is, and you'd be able to use that time to focus on saying goodbyes and keeping good relationships with people you have worked with. Or you may even be able to leave the company sooner and buy some time before you start your own business or start your first day at your new job. It is a win-win situation. Number 6, hand in your resignation in person. Rather than resigning from your job over email or text messages, always hand in your resignation letter in person because it's just simple courtesy. It's always better to communicate with your employer in person, especially on important matters such as resigning from your job. After all, you would want to keep a good relationship and not burn any bridges. And this is especially true because you'd also want to be grateful and thank your boss for all the opportunities and experiences that you've had at the company. Whether you enjoyed or not during your time at the firm, you've certainly grown as a person, and the company has given you a stable monthly income and benefits in return. You've probably also learned some new skills, gained new perspectives, as well as hopefully worked with some talented people and made some really great friendships. Always look back at your time with your employer and be grateful. It is a win-win mindset, and it makes the world so much of a better place to live in when you have a grateful heart. If you find my tips helpful, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave me a comment below and share with me your job quitting experience. I'll see you guys in my next video, and have a productive week. Bye!